Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Todd Grossman, and I am the CEO of Talkwalkers of the Americas. And today I am thrilled to have Georgina Goode, VP of Global Channel and Content Marketing at Boeing, together with us. Hi, Georgina. It's good to
Hi,
see
everybody.
you.
Hi, Todd.
How's Chicago over there?
Warming up a little bit. Warming up. Still a chill in the air, but the sun is shining, so all good.
Good. We're so happy to have you, the audience, join us at this exciting Social Media One session today. Boeing on social media, keeping an iconic global brand relevant, relatable, and human. And I'm really pleased to have you all join us. More people are coming in as we're talking. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you just a little bit very quickly about Talkwalker. For those of you who don't know who we are, Talkwalker is a listening and analytics company that empowers brands to help optimize the impact of their communication efforts. And we have offices globally in San Francisco, New York, Frankfurt, Luxembourg, Paris, and Singapore. And at the end of the day, what Talkwalker is trying to do is help companies protect, measure, and promote their brands. And we're very proud to have one of our most successful partners with us today, Georgina at Boeing, to basically have a fireside chat with us to discuss how Boeing steers its digital strategy on social media today and into the future. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to tell you a little bit about Georgina. I met Georgina back in the agency days when she was over there, and we've become longtime colleagues. And right now, Georgina is responsible for the Digital Center of Excellence and oversees the company's digital transformation of the communication function globally. And her scope includes data and web strategy, performance marketing, social media, organic and paid content, and analytics. Interesting fact, Georgina transitioned to the United States, and before that she was an advisor for digital engagement strategy for the UK government and 10 Downing Street. And prior to the UK government, Georgina was associate director at a marketing agency called Kindred. And one of the things that Georgina does is she likes to give back. And she is an early member and mentor of Bloom, which is a London-based networking group for women in the communications industry. And it's board of advisor, and she's also a board of advisor in her city now of Chicago, for Emboldened, which champions early and mid-career women in digital and tech industries. Georgina, did I forget anything?
No, you did a great job. Thank you. Thank you.
We're so thrilled to have you. And I'd just love to start and kick it off with the first question that we have. We only have less than 30 minutes, so we'll be pretty quick here and have this chat. Everyone knows the brand name Boeing. It's the world's largest aerospace company. It designs, manufactures, and sells airplanes, military jets, telecommunications equipment, satellites, and has categories worldwide. It's a unique brand that's recognized by all of us. And it's a rare case for a brand as well that you have challenges navigating social media efforts across B2B and B2C stakeholder groups and geographies. How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, great question. First of all, I just want to say hello to everybody and welcome. And I am absolutely delighted to be here today, Todd. So thank you to you and the team that has pulled together this webcast. Wish I could be with everybody in person, but we'll need to do this, albeit virtually. I hope everyone is staying safe and practicing good hygiene. This question, Todd, I love this question. I really do, because I think the challenge is probably the question itself, trying to categorize audiences into B2B and B2C boxes. And I think this can actually be counterproductive for marketers to look at audiences in this way. I would say at Boeing, and particularly with the digital strategies team who I oversee, we very much focus in on the needs and expectations of specific audiences rather than how we think, I would say, as a business, we should show up. So we don't ever do the whole, we think we should behave like a consumer brand. Does the audience expect us to behave in that way? If the answer is yes, then we will absolutely design a campaign using tactics that best meet those expectations. If it's not, then let's not try to be something that we're not. We don't need to do that. And in actual fact, I think that can lead to inefficiencies that just don't add value to us as a function, as a communications function, or to the Boeing business. And I think when you hone in on the needs and expectations of specific audiences, this is the key to being relevant. And this is why we're here today to talk about this. You know, how do we keep a brand relevant? Because expectations of stakeholders change, and they change very, very quickly. It can be to do with internal events, so leadership changes, for example, geopolitical events. I mean, we're a big, government contractor. So again, the nuances of governments around the world are really critical and important to us. It can be pandemics. I mean, look at COVID-19 and how brands are now expected to show up. And that shift in expectations across all groups, whether that's employees, the flying public for us, our customers, our airline customers, or our military customers, and governments, they have changed rapidly. So I would say we have diverse audiences. Yes, absolutely. Diverse needs, always a challenge there. And then trying to balance that with what we need to deliver as a business and our business priorities is a challenge, absolutely. But that is how we set our teams up. So we do set our teams up at Boeing around specific stakeholder groups. And this means that we can look at a specific challenge, brief, whatever it is, campaign, through the different lenses of those different stakeholder groups. So we may have one single narrative, say, for our Starliner, our commercial space program, or a first flight for our 777X. Or a PPE drop courtesy of our Dreamlifter, which has been recently in the news. But how we deploy that message may take many different forms. So a single narrative, but different forms in terms of how we show up based on the needs and expectations of those different stakeholder groups. So challenging, yes, because the lines are blurred, I would say, but it's an important discipline to have, to think about those different audiences and their needs and how you design those strategies around those. The discipline is also needed when it comes to the research and understanding and the insight of those audiences. So quantitative and qualitative research, critical. Social media listening, again, very important. Working with third parties when it comes to tracking surveys, etc. Performance data, understanding how the campaigns that we run are resonating, how can we improve what we do, how are they telling us and providing us insights around those different audiences, is a critical part of the planning process. And I would say structuring our teams in that way it definitely works for us in terms of how we deliver on those campaigns. And I think part of your question was also about geographies. Mm-hmm. And I think the geographies piece, the same discipline applies. It's just another lens we use to look at our campaigns through and our audiences through. And we're really fortunate that we have embedded communicators around the world that are subject matter experts, I would say, for their particular localities, regions, and they bring that expertise to a particular working group on a campaign. To wrap this answer up, I thought it would be useful just to run through five guiding principles that my team really use, because I think it's pertinent to this particular question. So these are the guiding principles that we rolled out last year, which really form the basis of how the team operates at Boeing and what really is kind of our North Star, I would say, in terms of how we operate. So number one is audience-centric content design. So you can see that stakeholder theme through that as well. Excuse me, I've got a 4-year-old running around in the background and I swear he's going to very much distract me. But audience-centric content design, we think audience needs and expectations first when we're building online user experiences and digital strategies. Number two is always data-driven. So you would have heard that through my answer there in terms of we base decisions on insights from real-time monitoring, campaign evaluation, and qual research. 3 is around common data, processes, tools, and technologies. We strive for simplicity to ensure consistency and efficiency in how we operate and execute campaigns. Now, this is an important one because we have to have that level of consistency there in terms of how we show up. So in terms of the tactics, they may be nuanced based on the particular stakeholders, But in terms of that core narrative and that brand piece, there has to be that consistency. So consistent but not uniform is kind of our mantra in terms of how we develop content. And that takes me back, if anyone is familiar with the government digital service in the UK, that is a guiding principle of the government digital service when I was there back in the day. Multidisciplinary, globally minded teams is number 4. So this is how we structure our teams based around different perspectives, experiences, stakeholder understanding we touched on, and core competencies. And then the last one is, I would say, more about how we operate as a comms team more broadly, is around being very open, very transparent in the content that we design, and also how we operate internally. You know, providing those standards, those digital standards, I would say, the training and information and content for all communicators within Boeing to share and repurpose and learn from. So those are the 5 principles, I would say, in terms of how we deliver as a team. And I think probably the first 4 really are quite pertinent to your question. So I'll leave it there, Todd.
Thank you. You mentioned pandemic, so I have to ask one question, just one. How did how does the pandemic impact your daily work, and what could our audience learn about this? And really, in personal terms, team-wise, on a corporate social media strategic level?
Yeah, that's a big question. And I think the majority of those on the phone are dealing with this right now and have been dealing with it for numerous weeks, going into numerous months now. It's a big question. I'll start with Boeing's corporate response. We mobilized a team incredibly quickly. Cadence of meetings, extremely regular, 2-3 times a day, because of just the dynamic environment out there. You know, we weren't talking about a situation that was changing weekly or daily. In some cases, it was hourly that we needed to, update information and get our workforce, engaged. The structure of the team, again, was really important. We talked about that in the last team, but we had to bring together a cross-functional team of HR communications, government relations, media, brand, site communicators as well for our, various sites, not just across the US, but globally, because there were various different complex and nuanced, my favorite word today, nuanced communications we needed to put out at a local level. When you think about the different federal, state, mandates and stay-at-home orders that were happening across, like I say, not just the US, but internationally. And also overnight, our posture needed to change because the world had changed. And this goes back to question 1, the needs and expectations of our stakeholders have changed, dramatically overnight. So we needed to look at what what we had planned from an editorial perspective, the posture and tone. We paused some advertising that just did not, in that moment, seem relevant in terms of communicated at that point and even now. And our tone on social media needed to change. Much more information, less of the entertainment piece and the frivolity there, which we all love to do and entertain and build connectivity in that way. But in an environment like this, particularly at the break of the pandemic, was just not appropriate. And I think we really stripped back some of the complexity around the objectives, around certain objectives that we needed to deliver on at that time. For us, it was about one sole objective, was to sufficiently and continuously keep our workforce engaged and communicated to. They needed to be kept up to date on Boeing's response, how we still are doing everything we can to keep them safe and in them safe, their community safe, and keeping that workplace safe as well. Also now, as we're starting to slowly reopen some of our facilities. The openness and transparency also of how we communicate is critical, and really also I'd say acknowledging how scenarios change really quickly and being very open and honest about that. We were putting out guidance on one day, which may need to be tweaked or changed completely the following day, and owning that is really important. Social media played a big part in this. We have a number of large, as you would all imagine, corporate presences across Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and LinkedIn, etc. But we also have a lot of niche communities on, for instance, both on Twitter but also on Facebook. We have a number of Facebook groups for our sites, whether that's Boeing in Washington for our Puget Sound employees, whether it's St. Louis, whether it's Boeing's South Carolina. You know, we have numerous communities that are served through social media, so we needed to make sure that they were regularly updated with site-specific communications that wouldn't necessarily be appropriate to put out on our corporate channels, but where these platforms are really critical for us to get that information out there. And I would also say that we really leveraged our internal channels. We use a tool called Social Chorus to engage internally through a desktop experience and an app experience. I'm really encouraging employees to share that content externally on their own social channels to make sure that information was getting out there as quickly as possible. And I think to that final point around internal and external, I think that has been a real sweet spot for us. I don't want to say success because we're all still working through this pandemic. You know, we're not quite at the end of the road yet, but I think that integrated planning between internal and external has been really important for us. You know, having that integrated approach and really making sure that they all work harmoniously, whether we're talking about websites, social media, you know, how we use our Social Chorus app, at-home mailers, they all need to be integrated and communicating in the right way and you know, with those standardized messages, yet tailored to those particular audiences around the US and globally. Team-wise and personally wise, that was the other part of your question. I kind of always lump these two together because I feel like when I have one-on-ones or group sessions with the team, I feel like it's almost counseling for me. It's very cathartic and I share advice and I'm like, George, you need to listen to your own advice and take it on board. But in terms of how I've kept the team motivated through this, I would say, you know, look, we have to acknowledge that these are unprecedented times, out of the ordinary. And we have to be mindful that each of us as a team, you know, as an individual contributor, but part of a broader team, are dealing with this in very different ways, you know, and have different stresses personally that are now kind of intertwined with our professional lives as many of us are working from home. So that remote working and juggling all those priorities can take its toll. So my advice, and you know, I can't claim these words as my own. They were a culmination of inspiration and that I found on Twitter. So if the author is out there or anybody on the line knows who the author of this advice is, then please let me know because it has been really motivating for me and for my team. But some of the words that I shared with my team was the following. Number one, you are not working from home. You are at home. You are at your home, during a crisis trying to work. 2, your personal, physical, and mental health is far more important than anything else right now. 3, you should not try and compensate for lost productivity by working longer hours. This is why I always have to remind myself. 4, you'll be kind to yourself and not judge how you are coping based on how others are coping. 5, you'll be kind to others and not judge how they are coping based on how you are coping. And 6, important one, this team's success will not be judged the same way it was when things were normal. And I think those 6 points have been really resonated with me and really resonated with my team. And I think being open and accepting of this advice when things get particularly tough, and for me as a leader, making sure that I provide that kind of, I would say, mental capacity for my team to genuinely live by that advice and counsel. Those have been important words that have helped us navigate over the last few weeks, I would say.
Yeah. Those are excellent examples of advice, and I take it to heart. Even with us here at Talkwalker, it's okay to be okay, and we're thanking you, and I'm thanking you, Georgina. We're at your home right now. You have opened up your home to us to do this virtual webinar. So this leads to a question. I think I know the answer. Is it possible to humanize the Boeing brand, and what's the key strategy to keep the brand relevant?
I'll definitely go with the humanize part of this because I think we talked a lot about relevancy, and I mean they're so intertwined, to be honest. But absolutely, I mean, there's no doubt we are a large global engineering and manufacturing company, no doubt there. But we are who we are because of our 160,000 committed employees worldwide that deliver excellence every single day. And we are who we are because of our enduring relationships with our customers and suppliers across the business and again around the world. And it's these relationships which really are the core of how we create content and how we endeavor, I would say, to connect and engage with different stakeholders across digital platforms. And if we can't do this, if we're not building that connectivity through our digital platforms, then again, we're simply not going to be able to drive value with what we do. So how do we do that? I would say understanding our stakeholders clearly, and we've touched on that in terms of the research part and bringing those different perspectives from various different team members. How we design content, ensuring how we build that content. Yes, it's based on needs and expectations, but we build it in a way that is compelling and based on how users access and behave on different social platforms. How we ensure transparency in the content that we design and build. And of course, that ability to tell compelling stories. And I would say, for a company that is 104 years old, we don't struggle with content. We're blessed that we have such rich content from such a rich history. Last week we marked the 75th anniversary for BE Day with some amazing content from our Boeing archives. We have incredible, I would say, takeoff and landing shots of our planes. Our first flight for 777X. We've designed content around virtual STEM field trips for our employees, but for those that follow us also on social media, for those individuals that have kids at home and being homeschooled. So again, we very much are attuned to trying to design content that will keep people engaged and really tell compelling stories, because everything we do, I would say, has a human interest angle to it. Whether it's an incredible feat of engineering, whether it's a vision of future aerospace or navigating through adversity, these are all really powerful themes, I would say, with two things in common. I would say people and relationships, the connective tissue that keeps us all going. So yeah.
We have many people in the audience. I know from years past that there are younger folks who are looking to make career changes, and you've had such a successful, diverse, fascinating career in agency, corporate, government. And what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about pivoting their digital marketing career today?
Oh, big question. Another one, Todd. Another one. I would say I've been fortunate. Yes, I have had a diverse career, a breadth of experiences, and I've been lucky enough to participate in multiple facets of the marketing industry. I suppose as an older millennial, giving my age away, I've been lucky again also to grow up alongside social channels from their genesis, really, that are now ubiquitous in marketing communications, and that has been truly fascinating. I suppose what I've learned is cheesy, but this industry does not stand still. On whatever side you sit, whether that's in-house, agency, on the vendor side, it's that kind of constant personal innovation to keep up with the trends and platform developments, which is really important. You have to be aware of that, and you have to make sure you're continually upskilling yourself in terms of what's happening in the industry. But I would say there is one constant, and it is core marketing principles. Irrespective of channels, irrespective of technology, it's having that solid strategy. It's having that foundation of understanding your audience, which we've spoken about, having clear, well-defined objectives and KPIs. Mastering this and being able to articulate a vision and bring people along with you. I would say those have been key success drivers for me. Career more broadly, gosh, getting a bit deep now. Number one, I think work hard. It's not always easy, and sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do, and you have to make compromises. And I would say that as long as you have your North Star in terms of where you want to be in 3, 5, 10 years time, and you know that things aren't going to come easy, this is the long game, then you'll be okay. And hard graft will pay off. It will, absolutely. 2, for me, I would say be inclusive. And this is not just of people and perspectives. Absolutely, that is critical and is number one for me when I'm bringing teams together to work to solve problems and build out campaigns. But also be inclusive of different experience for your own self, and do take risks. I never thought that I would end up working in the public sector in the UK and working for UK government. That was a big jump for me, but it was one of the best decisions I could have made in my career. So I do think, opening up the aperture to different types of experiences is a good thing and can take your career on an interesting path. And then the third one, this is a bit of a cheesy one, but I think it's really important, and it is be kind. This industry is small. I've started my industry, spent 10 years in London. I'm now over in the States. It doesn't matter, what side of the earth you're on. The industry is small. We all follow each other around. It's very important that you build those connections and you build those in a respectful way. And because you do not know who you're going to meet along the way and who you're going to need along the way to advocate for you. So that's really important. And I would also say, just a final point is around being kind on yourself. And I think that goes back to the working hard, because when things are tough, you said it, Todd, it is okay to not always bring your A game every single day. It's okay to have off days. And you have to give yourself, a bit of a reprise in terms of always trying to be in delivery mode again, day in, day out, particularly in the environment that we're operating in at the moment. So 1, work hard. 2, be inclusive. 3, be kind. I think would be my 3 kind of guiding lights in terms of how I've built my career and what has really kind of stuck with me to where I am now.
I love it. Thank you for sharing all these insights. And we have a few questions from the audience, and I think we have time for 1 or 2. I'd love to ask you this question that came in from the audience. And you may not know the answer to this, but it's worth discussing. We're seeing this at Talkwalker as well. A lot of discussions coming back. Do you think the workforce will return to the office or maintain flexible and remote work?
Yeah, I think it's potentially going to be a bit of a hybrid. I know from a Boeing perspective, where we are in Chicago, we probably we're going to have to look at our facilities and how socially distanced we are from each other. And I think it probably will be a bit of a hybrid in terms of the working from home and being in the office culture. And I do think things will change, particularly until we find a vaccine for COVID-19. So it's a difficult one to answer, because it's also going to be very different in terms of where you're based globally and where you're based in the US. But I think I predict that it's going to be a bit of a hybrid, where you come in on certain days, work certain hours in the office. There'll be rules about sizes of meetings, restricted travel, etc. So we're still building our plans out at Boeing. So yeah.
One last question. How do you continue to maintain team spirit during this time among your team? Any tips or anything fun that you wanted to share?
I am truly blessed to have such an awesome team that always send lots of silly things to pick the team up. whether that's internet memes, whatever it is. So I'm lucky in that respect. For me, it's just making sure that we have that connectivity. So I have regular one-on-ones with my team, every week to make sure that they're okay. You know, it's a very dynamic time and a very challenging time. We know that for the aerospace industry. You know, we can see that in the headlines, and so it's really important that that communication is there. And it's kind of ironic that we are, you know, more connected than we've ever been with technology. But in actual fact, unless you are really making the effort to have those conversations and to connect, it can actually feel quite lonely. And even talking behind a screen is, you know, not the same as face-to-face interaction. So really making sure that, you know, I'm picking up the phone, I'm chatting to the team, even if it's for 5 minutes to say, are you doing okay? We do not need to talk about work right now. How's everything else going? You know, how's your kids doing? How's your mum doing? You know, it's making sure that we have that connectivity and that empathy also, I would say, around people's situations, so they don't need to panic if things aren't okay.
Georgina, thank you so much for your time, really letting us into your home again and sharing everything. I'm so sorry I can't see you in person, and our audience as well. It would have been nice to see you in New York, but there's always next year, and maybe we can have you back. That's for sure. I wanted to end and let our audience know that we have 2 more sessions, one today on a demo on Sam's Club. Case study, how the retail and service industry turns customer data into strategy. And then tomorrow at 6 p.m., we have David Meerman Scott, who is a famous best-selling author, and he's going to talk about the neuroscience of fandom. I actually heard him speak. That was my last well-attended 4,000-person conference I went to in the beginning of March in San Diego, and I heard him speak, and we're lucky to have him give his presentation to the audience. So please feel free to spread the word. Georgina, thank you again for joining us, and our audience, thanks for staying in and listening. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.